Why do you give this impression of being that anti-NATO?
Depends of which perspective you would choose to look at. Some would call us Russian propagandist, Iranian propagandist, or resistance propagandist.
Why is this impression?
People were fed a sort of narrative in the West, hard to break through, you know.
What is the commonality in these issues which you're covering?
Simple answer would be, who's behind all of this? That is the United States.
So what was the differentiator in October 7th to give this upper hand to the narrative which we wanted to convey?
Israel's case was, I think they thought, okay, let's do the same playbook, let's whitewash, let's brainwash some people. You think we're stupid, and it was easy to debunk.
حلقة جديدة من سردية عز في موسمه الثاني. أسعدتم أوقاتا. ضيفي لليوم is بورت. هو بورت. Hello Borut, how are you?
Hello, thank you.
I'm very glad to have you in this episode of Sardiyat Aiz, which is our podcast, and you are the co-founder of DD Politics or Geopolitics, which aims at transcending borders in a multipolar world. So when we talk about transcending borders in a multipolar world, so definitely you cover all the news which go against NATO, against Ukraine. You try to show the truth when it comes to the Israeli crimes in Palestine. You showcase the struggles of the oppressed. Why did you decide on this path rather than any other mainstream path?
Definitely, when we started, first of all, is the personality of the people doing this. We have always been, I have grown up, let's say, anti-imperialist, with an anti-imperialist mindset. But why we do that? Obviously, we started doing it during the Russia-Ukraine war when that started. And the narrative at that time was overwhelming Western, basically, propaganda. No one was pushing back in the Western media. So we started doing that mainly on social media at the start because there were ridiculous stories. I don't want to name a few because they're so ridiculous. But we started pushing back, let's say, in the style of modern social media, you know. Social media these days is you have to grab attention of the people. So like people's attention is the main asset, the main commodity in social media. So we used the same tactics, let's say the Western propagandists used, like short, maybe used humor, used social, pop culture references, stuff like that, to grab attention, and that's how it grew. And then when the team obviously got bigger, we could afford more analysis, because primarily we're like an open source intelligence, military analysts, political analysts. But of course we expanded our coverage, and the tagline, like you read, transcending borders in a multipolar world, is basically the part of us that tries to teach the audience, especially the Western audience, because we're English-based. English language-based, even though the team is international, is that the unipolar world, the world that we have been living in, like, let's say, since the breakup of the Soviet Union, is not something that is compatible with the world. So we need to push for a multipolar world.
We need to have another narrative. That's why you've leveraged the power of social media through this grassroots initiative. Can I say that it's a grassroots initiative? It's kind of the, as in the military, we talk about classical warfare and the guerrilla warfare. The guerrilla warfare might be very impactful. So you have your guerrilla tactics on DD Geopolitics, so that you voice out whichever concern or whichever issue you want to shed the light on.
Of course.
What were the major issues which you've covered since you were founded till now?
Like I said, we started with the Russia-Ukraine war, but the narrative in the West was basically Putin woke up one morning, a mad dictator, angry and invaded Ukraine. Even though, like, if you followed the events in Donbass, which is, like, let's say the biggest struggle of oppressed people we covered, that has been going on for now over 10 years. And even mainstream media, let's say 2016, 2015, after the Maidan, they did cover. But all of a sudden, after 2022, that disappeared, right? And the whole propaganda machine, the Western propaganda machine, was in sync and was so powerful. But I'd say maybe it was a bad time because people were skeptical in mainstream media news, maybe because of COVID, how that was handled around the world. I don't know. A lot of people turned to alternative media, and that's why I guess we were at the right place at the right time to get the ball rolling, you know.
And to educate people.
And to educate. When we got a little bigger, when we decided we will do, let's say, video content, interviews, live streaming, that's when our name kind of helped us leverage, and our networking kind of helped us to get good guests early on. International reporters, analysts, military analysts.
Maybe the reach which you've acquired has helped you to get good guests.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you're primarily present on X and on Telegram, targeting different targeted audiences on these two platforms, or are there commonalities between these two target audiences?
I'd say all the platforms have a specific target audience.
Okay.
So because let's say I would say our Telegram is mostly breaking news live coverage. So it's rapid fire news, a lot of posts a day, statements. If let's say there's ongoing conflict, we try to let's say if we get a video of something that happened, let's say some airstrike or some major event, we try to cross-check that and then post as quickly as possible, but be as accurate as possible. Because I don't think being the first, being truthful and real is better than being the first. A lot of people.
So if you are aiming at being the first, you will compromise the validity and the credibility of your news. Why do you give this impression of being that anti-NATO? This is part of your brand.
I mean, depends on which perspective you would choose to look at. Some would call us, let's say, a Russian propagandist or Iranian propagandist or resistance propagandist. But definitely,
why is this impression?
Because people people were fed a sort of narrative in the West. It's hard to break through, you know. If you've been
to break through the hegemony, you mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And like the in sync media coverage of every event in the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. So, but we are like, our team is international. So most of us come from like regions that were affected by the hegemony, you know. We have Russian part of our team that's obviously under attack from the West now for the past 3 years. We have a Palestinian from the West Bank administrator who obviously feels the struggle now. We have teams from the Balkans, so former Yugoslavia, which was basically broken up by the West. So most of our people kind of grew up with that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's organic.
So during your coverage, you've covered many incidents happening around the world. You cover incidents in the Levant countries, in the Israeli war, in the aftermath of October 7th, the Israeli war on Lebanon, and many other places in Europe, in Russia, Ukraine, the Middle East as well. What is the commonality in these issues which you're covering?
The simple answer would be who's behind all of this, and that is the United States. That would be.
This is a more direct form of asking my question. So
yeah, definitely.
Who's behind the scenes, actually?
Yeah, it's definitely the powerhouse that's behind basically every major conflict in the last few decades. So yeah, that's the commonality. I think the style is definitely different. You know,
the tactics differ as well,
yeah,
because the context is different. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. It's a little. Let's say if you compare Ukraine and Israel, for example, it's a little different in my opinion, because Ukraine, I would call it like simple and let's say a little comedic terms, I would call it a stupid proxy. You know, okay, America loves us, we want to be in the West. They were brainwashed. Like not all Ukrainians feel that way. Israel is more dangerous. You know, as a proxy, as a because they're considered more as a partner, you know. Ukraine, you can see now in
not
the
only
media.
a partner, a spoiled kid, maybe some say. It is a spoiled kid.
Yeah.
So this justifies the barbaric acts of Israel against the Palestinians and against the Lebanese in the last war. Actually, you haven't been to Lebanon in person, or any team member of DD Geopolitics. It's your first visit to Lebanon. So as an insider now, how can you see the scene maybe in the southern borders of Lebanon, which you might have visited, attending the funeral of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, the martyr? How things changed when you've seen them yourself?
It's like I'll say it's very different watching coverage and news coverage through a screen, through collecting intelligence, and then coming to the place. I would say like I just returned from Donbass a month ago, and now I'm here. But I would say the energy of the spirit of the resistance is like you could literally. You could measure it. You could feel it. Definitely measure it. It's very obvious, and it's very inspiring. I'll say that, because of course, like our whole brand is based on resistance. Depends on what kind of resistance you think. We resisted censorship and social media. We were lucky. Some people like
as we have military wars, we have war of narratives, and you among many other voices have contributed to having the upper hand in the war of narratives for the first time in the aftermath of October 7th. Before October 7th, the narrative of the mainstream media, which is hegemonized by the West, was the only one prevailing. Now we have different narrative. So it's a kind of resistance, I guess. I don't know if it's a war of narratives, it's digital resistance, you name it. So you have seen a new perspective visiting Lebanon. Yeah,
it's definitely like the courage of the people. We visited the borders, so we visited 2 days ago. Right on the blue line, across from us was an Israeli base, and we were observed by Israelis there. So we have one big social media influencer with our team, which kind of made us nervous.
Jackson, maybe?
Jackson. Kind of made us a little nervous, you know. But then we saw all the flags. We saw people returning to their homes. But
because they are the landowners, actually. So definitely they have to go
There's nothing
back to
there. Everything has like been leveled.
Destroyed.
Destroyed. See, that's the difference. Let's say
between the landowners and the land occupiers.
And in the narrative, we say a lot of times, imagine if Russia would unleash the same style as Israel does. People would go insane, because they could definitely level cities if they wanted to.
Definitely. They have the power, they have the arms, sure.
But everyone is quiet when Israel does it. So to circle back to your question, definitely like the courage of the people, and like you could see kids with smiles because it's their home, and the resistance, you hear about a lot of the axis of resistance, the spirit of resistance, but when you have literal like Hezbollah flags waving to the Israeli soldiers watching them, and after the whole struggle they went through, they still resist, you know, and they still have a statement: this is my land, you were the occupier, no. So it's I'll say it if in a few words to describe it, it'd be like very courageous and very inspiring.
It was inspiring.
Very.
Are you worried about the axis of resistance in the aftermath of these two big wars, October 7th and the September War, Ulil Ba's on Lebanon? Are you worried, especially also after the martyrdom of many of the top leaders in Hamas and Hezbollah, the devastation, many homes being destroyed, many villages, etc. So how do you perceive this axis of resistance now?
You mean if I perceive it as a weakened state?
How do you perceive it now? Are you worried about it? Do you think that it's at a weaker state or not?
I would say, depending on which side of me would look at it. Like from a military analyst side of me, I would say definitely. But that's considering logistic supplies, weapons supplies, command and support centers. But from a a spiritual or like attitude side. Definitely not.
To which side do you give more weight, the spiritual or the military?
Definitely the spiritual.
The spiritual.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, because one of my guests said that when the Lebanese resistance, the Islamic resistance started in the 1982, they had less power than the power which they have now after the war has ended. Yet, due to this spirituality which you're pointing to, they were able to gain the momentum which they needed, yeah?
Yeah, of course, you can't, you can destroy military units, you can destroy equipments, but you can't destroy an idea. A belief.
Yes, and resistance is an idea and a belief. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Going back to your platform, have you encountered shadow banning, content removal, or account restrictions for your pro-Palestinian content?
Oh, definitely.
And how were you able to deal with that?
Not really. You can't. Really
you have to understand the algorithm.
You just have to be honest and keep your dignity. The point of that is for a media platform to start self-censoring, and you can filter out a lot of bad actors like that, because especially Twitter was really hard, and then Elon Musk took over and whatever.
Provided you with more flexibility, actually. Yeah.
In a way, but also they monetized it, so engagement was all of a sudden monetized. So you could see, like, if you change the narrative, you could get more money.
And you need this money to continue to produce
it's a delicate act,
better pieces, yeah? It's delicate.
Yeah, it's very delicate. It's a struggle. But I think, like I said before, it's more important to be correct than the first. I think it's more important to be genuine. And like, we could never change our narrative, because we're not a typical media collective that gets maybe instructions how to write, because we feel it. This is how we feel, and we report in a way. Everyone is biased. Some people just don't say they're biased. Definitely. Western media just doesn't say they're biased. Like, we are obviously biased, but we will
biased to your argument.
Yeah.
And we develop some kind of confirmation bias, which to confirm our arguments. So and to validate them, to make them credible. Scientists have this kind of bias as well. As long as it's justified through fact checking, etc., it's legitimate. So you're using your own platform to showcase your side of the story.
That's why we could never, let's say, bend the knee to self-censorship just because we need maybe revenue or something like that. So it's hard. It was hard on like both of our major conflict zones that we covered. But I'll say we covered the Israeli crimes way before October 7th. But it just got a lot of more attention, obviously, because after October 7th. This time around, it was a little different. So it was easier to cover it, because like the momentum on like Western social media was way bigger.
Yeah.
So you could get around that censorship. I don't think, like, probably my colleague would know more, because she's more Twitter focused. On Telegram, it doesn't really matter. We get a lot of support.
Exactly.
And there pretty much was no, Telegram doesn't know shadow banning or content banning or stuff like that. Twitter is definitely different.
Yeah. Do you think that digital activism alone is enough to make a lasting impact, or must it be coupled with on-the-ground action?
No, definitely on-the-ground action.
It has to be coupled with on-the-ground action.
Definitely.
Which incidents out of those which you've covered showcase that it has to be coupled with the on-the-ground action?
Definitely, the whole aftermath after October 7th. On-the-ground action, we mean like
the battlefield.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Both. All incidents, I think, because you cannot like create some truth if it's not real. Like, let's say you cannot say Ukraine is winning if it's obviously not winning. Because sooner or later that narrative collapses. So I think that's why we focus mainly on like news coverage, and then maybe, of course, analysis, but we don't engage with like long form discussions and predictions because it's so flexible, like so fluid. Whatever happens, we have no control over that. But in terms of narrative building, I think, especially for the resistance struggle, and I think it was very important how social media worked, how the online narrative kind of shaped perception, even though at the end it didn't influence the on the ground stuff. But if you look at
the Israelis are never impacted with the narrative, so even if the narrative is against them, they continue to do whatever they intended to.
But this time around, I think, because this happened over and over and over and over again. But this time around,
universities in the US, in Europe, the marches. So it was very big this time.
This time it was big, and I think you have to. Someone will be convinced and maybe did research and will know how to do what their opinion is. And you have to try really hard to maybe change their opinion. But you're targeting people who are not, let's say, not that into conflict zones or don't really want to care about the news. But this one got so big that you had a chance to show, and to persuade the people that are quote unquote neutral or didn't care before. So that's how the impact, I think, was achieved this time around.
So what was the differentiator in October 7th to give this upper hand to the narrative which we wanted to convey?
Hard to say.
Is it the scene itself, the size of the... What was it?
I think definitely...
It was a turning point, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're at that time where media coverage, like everyone has a phone, everyone films everything, and the real time, let's say, debunking of lies. I think that I would say that early it was, let's say in Israel's case, it was, I think they thought, okay, let's do the same playbook, let's whitewash, let's brainwash some people. But you had analysts and like open source intelligence, media contributors that quickly, like let's say, could geolocate. This rocket was fired. They say the rocket was fired from there, but if you look at the impact crater, you look at I don't know the debris, the shrapnel patterns.
Exactly.
Oh, you are lying, or maybe they intercepted communications. That was pretty funny. Israel posted a bunch of videos with like animations, waveform animations, and everyone was like, okay. We see that before. We were like, we saw that in Ukraine. They intercepted conversations of Russian soldiers saying ridiculous things, and it was debunked. And we kind of posted in reference to a previous Ukrainian-Russian conflict, debunking that easily, just by saying, okay, this is the same playbook the empire or the hegemon used already, like not even that long ago. You think we're stupid? And it was easy to debunk. So I think that this time around it's kind of different because it's more fast-paced, more people are watching it, and it's easier to analyze things.
Yeah, and a bigger reach, more impactful. The level of production in many cases was high, and even if we don't have this high level of production, the reach maybe contributed to countering the hegemonized picture which the West and the unipolar world wanted to project on us. And definitely, Borit, the co-founder of DD Geopolitics, you were a major contributor to this message and to be the voice of the oppressed since the foundation of DD Geopolitics. I highly thank you for being a guest in Sردية as our podcast. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
My pleasure.